The hotel conference room felt too quiet for what was about to be said. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet in the way places get when everyone inside is holding their breath. A single spotlight stood on a metal stand, its light warm but narrow, illuminating only the small circle where Mei Mei sat. The rest of the room fell into a gentle blur: beige walls, a silver thermos on a table, a folded script someone left behind. Nothing about the space was special. Nothing was meant for emotion. Yet tonight it became a place where truth finally had no escape. Mei Mei sat with her back straight, but her shoulders tight, as though her whole body was bracing against something invisible. Her fingers curled into each other nervously, and her breath shook every time she exhaled. When she lifted her head and looked at the camera, her eyes were already wet, carrying exhaustion no makeup could hide. And when she finally spoke, her voice broke instantly. "People kept saying I was jealous," she whispered. "They said I didn't understand acting, that I was misreading everything." She paused, as if steadying herself. "But what I saw, no one warned me about that." She didn't start with accusations, she started with truth. "It wasn't the scenes, it wasn't the acting. I've watched him film intimate scenes for years. I respected his craft, I admired his dedication. I never once doubted him because of a role." Her breath trembled. "What scared me was what happened after the scene ended." She swallowed, her fingers tightened. "It didn't happen just once. It kept happening, over and over, until I couldn't pretend anymore." She leaned forward slightly, her voice low but clear. "The first time I saw it, they had just finished a scene where he held his co-star in his arms. The director yelled 'cut'. The staff relaxed, the lights shifted, but Yulong, he didn't let go. Not immediately, not naturally. His eyes stayed locked on her like he was still in the moment, like he didn't know the scene was over." She blinked slowly, remembering each detail. "I thought maybe he didn't hear the cue, but then it happened again." Another day, another scene. She exhaled shakily. The director said cut. The actress stepped back, but he didn't. His hand lingered on her back. His eyes stayed soft. His breathing didn't change. And for a second, it looked like he forgot I was standing right there, just a few meters away. She looked down, trembling. That wasn't acting. There was a long pause before she continued. "One time, he and his co-star had to do a slow dance scene for a drama. It was nothing romantic, just a simple spin, a close frame. But when the scene ended, he kept one hand gently on the back of her neck, something not in the script, something that didn't belong to the scene. And he stayed like that until she awkwardly stepped back." Her voice tightened. He wasn't flirting, he wasn't being inappropriate. He looked lost, like he wasn't fully himself anymore. She lifted her head again, this time with more pain than hesitation. But that was only the start. The real changes happened far away from cameras in the quiet corners of their life together. At home, he barely spoke. His eyes looked tired all the time, not from work, but from something deeper, something he didn't want me to see. She pressed her hand against her chest. He stopped laughing, stopped joking, stopped reaching for me like he used to. He withdrew slowly at first. Then, all at once. He would sit on the couch for hours without turning on the TV, just staring, thinking, or maybe not thinking at all. I couldn't tell. And when I asked if he was okay, he'd say, "I'm fine," without looking at me. She shook her head. He wasn't fine. She continued, voice trembling. "There were nights I woke up and found him sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. When I approached him, he straightened up and forced a smile like nothing happened." She breathed in deeply, steadying herself. He became jumpy around his phone. He always placed it face down, not because he was hiding something romantic. I never felt that. It felt like he was hiding parts of himself, Messages from managers, stress, worries, things he didn't want me to carry. She paused again, letting the silence stretch. He forgot things, she whispered. Important things. Our dinner plans, his mother's birthday, a promise he made to help me set up my new project. And every time he forgot, he looked genuinely confused, like he didn't remember forgetting. Her tears welled again. That scared me more than anything on set. She looked straight at the camera, her voice breaking but truthful. I wasn't scared of another woman. I was scared of losing my husband to something I couldn't see. She took a moment before continuing, as if choosing her words carefully. The truth is, he didn't just become distant with me, she said quietly. He became distant with everyone. His friends noticed it too, even if they didn't say it out loud. He'd sit with people but not really be part of the conversation. He'd nod along, but his mind was always somewhere else. Mei Mei shifted slightly, her hand still resting in her lap. At home, it became obvious. He stopped reacting to things. I'd tell him something funny from my day and he'd smile a little, but not really. It wasn't the smile he used to give me. It felt like he was being polite. I could tell when someone's heart isn't in the moment anymore. She looked down, remembering something that's clearly lingered in her mind. He started forgetting more often, little things at first, where he placed his keys, what we planned for dinner, whether he had replied to a message. But then he forgot things he normally never would, like the date of an event he was preparing for, or what we talked about the night before. She hesitated, her voice tightening. Sometimes he'd apologize, but in this confused way, like he didn't understand why his memory kept slipping. She rubbed her thumb over her knuckles, grounding herself. And it wasn't because he didn't care. That's what made it harder. He was trying. I could see he was trying. But whatever he was dealing with, it was bigger than him, bigger than me. Her expression softened with something raw. There were nights he'd come home and just sit down without saying anything. Not because he wanted to ignore me. He just looked drained. Not physically tired, but mentally somewhere far away. I'd ask if he wanted to eat, and he'd say he wasn't hungry. I'd ask if something happened at work, and he'd say, no, it's fine. And that was it. She looked into the camera again, steady but hurt. People think couples fall apart because of big fights or betrayals. But sometimes it's this. Someone slowly fading, slowly shutting down, slowly carrying things alone. And the person beside them doesn't know where the door is anymore. Her words ended softly, grounded in something painfully real. He wasn't the same anymore, not because of another person, but because he was losing pieces of himself, and I didn't know how to help him hold them together.